This is Amy Gray-Cunningham, and you are listening to the Butterfly Kisses podcast, a journey of spiritual transformation. It has been my pleasure to speak with some amazing people who have had profound spiritual awakenings. Throughout these conversations, may you experience a life filled with joy, love, and personal growth. Now let's get going. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Butterfly Kisses podcast. I am your host, Amy Gray-Cunningham, and I want to thank you for taking the time to join me today. We have a wonderful guest. Her name is Jenn Gilbreth, and she is a fellow medium. She's a clairvoyant. She sees spirits. She communicates with spirits, and I can't wait for you to meet her. We have an exciting episode today where she is going to talk about her journey and how she got into mediumship and what it's like for her connecting with those on the other side. It's a passion for her, and I know that that's just going to come through as we go down this journey together. So with no further ado, I want to welcome and introduce to you Jenn Gilbreth. Thank you. Well, welcome, Jenn, to Butterfly Kisses today. I am so excited to have you here, and I know this is going to be a fabulous hour. I can't wait to dive into your story.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel so honored and I'm excited to see what Spirit has in store for us today.
I know, isn't it great? I get so excited when I do these podcasts because I never know what's going to come up.
Yeah, it's almost funny too in this realm of life because we might have a plan of what something's going to be. And then once you get started, it's completely different.
Goes
So,
in a completely different direction. So
yeah.
you just never know. And that's what I love about doing the podcast and talking to my guests. And it's just fabulous. So tell us, how did you get into communicating with angels?
Yes. So when I was little, I have always felt really drawn to the other side. My
Mm-hmm.
grandfather passed, I believe I was 7 at the time, and I remember sitting on, like, this we had this blue recliner in our house, and my dad was talking about the afterlife and where he thought his dad was and what he was doing, and it was as if all of a sudden I could see my grandpa. I could see that because when he was here, he was this old man who would walk, but he would, like, shuffle his feet, like, he couldn't walk fast. I never knew what he was saying, he mumbled a lot. He kinda scared me a little bit because I just didn't know who he was really.
Mm-hmm.
He would just shuffle
Yep.
over and so I was always like, "Oh, no, it's grandpa." But when my dad was talking about that, it was as if all of a sudden I could see his happiness, and I saw him in a lot younger of a state, and he was showing me all these things about him and what he was experiencing, and it terrified me. I was so drawn to what he was experiencing and drawn to the other side that it almost made me worried, like, "Oh my gosh, am I, like, being drawn? Like, am I gonna be going there soon? Like, am I gonna die?" And
Mm-hmm.
I had this fear come in, and finally I was like, "You know what? I'm just gonna sit with it and just see what that is." And I've had a lot of anxiety when I was little because I just felt so connected, but it was after that that I kind of embraced more of the afterlife and more of what's going on in the unseen realms because well, because of him, of course, but then
Mm-hmm.
there was just, like, more things that would show up where I would see things or feel things or experience things, and it was really intimidating, but as I've gotten older and I've looked at that, I've just seen that, of course, we can be connected to our ancestors or to angels, and they wanna help us thrive. It's just a matter of believing, and it's a matter of opening up our mind and our heart to that possibility.
Interesting. How old were you when you saw your grandfather?
7.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did he say anything to you, or did you converse?
It wa it was more of like this heart-to-heart conversation, and I remember him showing me that he could walk and that he could move, and he used to be in the he was in the n not in the Navy, in the Air Force, and I saw him in, like this tan shirt that I've seen, like, a picture of him in, but it was like I could see him conversing and being with his mom and meeting his dad and, like, conversing with those who had passed before, and it was like I was watching it, and I'm very clairvoyant, so I see things a lot, And so it's kind of like if you think back to what you had for dinner last night, you could
Mhm.
picture that in your mind. It feels like imagination in a lot of ways, but it was very much so like that. But then it was just like this heartfelt understanding that he was happy to be there. He found a lot of peace in his passing, and he just like let me know that he was okay. And it was, yeah, it was beautiful. And as a 7-year-old, I'm like, I don't even know what this means, but I'm feeling it and I feel good about it, but it terrifies me at the same time.
I bet. I bet. How did you know that it wasn't just your imagination and that you were just making up your grandfather sitting there talking with somebody?
That's a good question. It was a lot different than I've ever experienced. I mean, I was so little, but and I think that was part of it too, is that kind of sparked this interest inside of myself where then I would start listening to like out of body experiences at such a young age or near death or anything that had to do with the afterlife really brought in this space of like intrigue. And it just opened this sense of intrigue within me that really I didn't know for sure if it was real or if it wasn't real, but I felt it inside myself. I felt this connection of like a soul to soul validation. I don't know how else to describe it, but it felt like that soul to soul validation for myself. And as I reflect back upon that and look at the events leading up to that, like after that, and what I experienced as a child, it's all a matter of trust and really surrendering, which, as you know, like anything in the energetic or the spiritual realm, there is an aspect of complete trust in that space as well. So I don't know
Mhm.
if that answers your question, but that's what's coming in.
Yeah, no, no, no. That's great. Do you think anyone can connect with spirits and with
You
loved?
know, yeah, I think, well, if you think about this, right, is I believe and what I've experienced is we have a higher essence, we have a higher soul, our soul's calling. And it feels like, of course, we come into this physical body, and yet we are so much more than this physical body. So when we have a download of information, or when we're in the flow and we feel really lit up and excited inside, that's like us accessing or being a part of like our true higher essence or our higher self. So if we are a higher essence or if we are a bigger spirit, you could say, than we are here, when we leave, we go back to that same spirit. We go back to that higher space and what I've understood and what I believe. But in that same concept, everyone around us also has that same experience. So you have your spirit is greater than you in this physical body. And so having that spirit to spirit conversation is naturally who we truly are. It's our natural essence. And
Mhm.
when we come here, we forget about that. But we have our 5 senses that we have in the physical body, right? We can smell, we can taste, and not everyone has all 5 senses, but generally that's a part of expression in this physical body. But we can also experience that in our spiritual aspect. And in fact, that spiritual connection is truly infinitely who we are. We just forget here. So I
Mhm.
do believe that we all have that ability to have those spirit to spirit conversations, and they're going to look different for everybody. Just like our 5 senses here are different. Like some people can't see, some people can't hear. Sometimes you can't taste or your smell is off or you can't smell anything. And it's just part of we have stronger senses and we have weaker senses, but we also have that in spirit as well.
That's an interesting way to look at that. I
Yeah.
like that. Yeah. Everybody can probably bounce a ball, but not everybody's going to play like Kobe Bryant or
Yeah, not everyone's good at it, but people can do it.
yeah, yeah. So why do you think people who so want to hear from someone who is a loved one who's crossed and they're waiting and they haven't received a sign, why do you think, or heard a voice or connected with their loved ones, why do you think that they don't or can't or haven't?
These are good questions. In that aspect, I have experienced while delivering, messages from the other side that it might be discouraging. Like maybe there's a sister who has very fluid conversations or has a lot of validation that's coming in. And then maybe there's a sister who really wants that, but she's like, I haven't experienced anything. What the heck is wrong with me? And
Mhm.
one thing that I have experienced is that our loved ones and our angels and our ancestors are going to come to us in ways that help us feel safe and help us feel loved and connected. Where maybe someone is like, yeah, I could see them in my dream and that makes me feel excited and I'm open to that. Or maybe someone who hasn't had that experience, if someone did show up in their dream, they might not be as open or it might actually terrify them. Or maybe it would be harder for them to find healing after that, like have healing moving forward. And
Mm,
so I have found that our ancestors, our loved ones, our angels are going to come to us in ways that are going to help us move forward in life, but also empower us in the same space. And at the same time, if we're trying so hard for something, it's like with anything in life, right? Is if we keep wanting this one thing over and over and over again, but it's just not aligned or it's not for our highest good, it's going to keep closing. It's not going to open up for us. And I find that our ancestors want to help us to move forward in ways that are going to be healthy. And so that's a big thing too that's coming in with that. And I've experienced that over and over and over again. And on top of that, too, they want to help us in ways that we understand.
mhm.
And a lot of times we think, oh, if I don't see somebody physically, like if I'm not sitting here and I see a loved one, if I don't see them right here, right now, that doesn't mean they haven't showed up to me, but you might be driving in the car and all of a sudden have this image in your mind or a memory flood through your mind of that person. But that's also how they connect with us. That's how we can have that understanding. And I haven't really ever had someone like standing in the corner of my room staring at me. Like I haven't had that physical space, but I've seen it in my mind's eye. And so it's just our interpretation and understanding of how they communicate with us. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does for me. And I wanted to back up it real quick and ask a question about, you had said that you were clairvoyant. Can you explain for people who may not understand what the clairs are, what
Yeah.
clairvoyant means?
Yeah. So clairvoyant is so we have our five senses, right? Physical, or touch, taste, smell, see, hear. And you have those also in spirit, like I spoke of. So clairvoyance is seeing. So it's like seeing things in your mind. And I kind of like to think of it as if you were hiking and it's almost like being able to see things happening before or to see things that are beyond the eye's perspective. So maybe if I'm hiking and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, there's a path here, or there's danger here, or there's a snake here. Like it's almost like being able to see things that aren't always seen or that we're not used to seeing. And so that's kind of how I visualize it is being able to see things in your mind or to see things that are happening maybe before they happen or just as like a memory or an image of when things come through. So like if I'm delivering a message, I'll see things a lot. So maybe I'll see like this hummingbird that shows up in my space and it's like I'm seeing a hummingbird, or maybe if someone had cancer and I'll see this red box, maybe where their cancer was spreading. But it's just like seeing in your mind's eye, kind of like going back to dinner last night. You can picture that in your mind. That's clairvoyance.
That's pretty cool. So when people are connecting and they don't necessarily realize they're connecting, but they're having a memory of or an image of their loved one, can they, how do they know that it's, how do I put this? That it's not necessarily their own mind making it up. Can we ask for signs from our loved one to say, okay, this scene that I'm seeing in my head is actually valid, or the voice that I heard in my head is actually happening?
Right. Yeah. Well, on top of that, too, right, is we are so physical here that a lot of times we question a lot of spiritual concepts, or we're like, do I know that's true? Can I trust myself? Did I make it up? And so I do love that aspect of, maybe all of a sudden you're doing something and out of nowhere, this memory comes to your mind, or this song plays on the radio and it brings you to this emotion and you feel it in your body, or you're visualizing it, or you're just reminiscing on these memories. I think also acknowledging how your heart feels when those memories show up will be a confirmation, but you can definitely ask your angels for support. You can ask them to send you signs, or to let you know that it was them. And then, of course, you have people who are very skeptical that are like, well, if you ask for a sign, then you're just going to be looking for that sign. So, of course, you're going to find it, right? So it also goes back into the space of trusting at the same time is we can co-create. We get the opportunity to decide, maybe you want to have a sign. You're like, please help me send me a butterfly today, or maybe you want to see something really strange like a crystallized gecko or a diamond gecko, and you just open up the space, say, hey, I would love that confirmation, and more than likely it's going to show up. But it's also having the trust that you'll experience that.
Hmm.
But you
And
can totally, yeah, totally ask for signs, and nothing is bad or wrong about that. That's a good thing. It's a way of having a physical confirmation for a spiritual principle. And I think that's so impactful that we need to have that in this physical realm because we are here navigating the physicality of life.
that is so true. We are first spirit, but we're definitely human, having this human experience and trying to navigate it in this third dimensional world can be a little rough sometimes.
Absolutely. 100%. Hmm.
And it's really cool that you work with the angels that help guide us while we're here. That's why they were created. But how do you work with your angels, and what kinds of angels do you work with? Archangels, regular angels, cherubs? I don't know.
Right.
That's cute little cuddly angels.
I love that. Yeah, I feel that there's so many different kinds of angels and support. And I have tried to connect into like the archangels. And for some reason, it just feels like such a foreign concept to me. Like it's so hard for me to have like that deep connection. And they're there. I know that they are. Um, and I know that some people are really connected into that space. So typically, when I'm talking to angels or connecting, I have found a lot of this understanding in my ancestors. So I kind of look at it as like I'll call upon my ancestors or I'll do a lot of work with my physical ancestors. So that may be people that I knew who have passed or maybe like 3 generations back. I've experienced like connection to them. When I deliver messages, a lot of times it's the ancestral realm. So it's, maybe they're wanting to do some clearing or open up their own spiritual gifts that can be brought down from generation to generation. And so it's tapping into that space or people who have passed that we love, that we know, maybe if someone's husband passed away, connecting into that space. So that's also a big part of it. But I think a lot right now I'm being drawn into the ancestral realm of honoring those who came before us and implementing teachings and practices that they used to help find themselves in this physical world and empowering others to do the same is really what I feel like lately I've been drawn to.
Why do you feel like you've been drawn to that?
Well, I think really since 2022 or 2020, so many people have kind of opened up to this new sense of like, okay, if life really is this short, am I living life how I want? Am I making the most of this time? A lot of people were approached into this fear of the reality of how short life really is.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, I think that that opened up this space of people being out in nature more, people going outside and reconnecting in or being forced to like sit with what do I believe, what resonates with me. And so I think that there was a huge push of like opening up this space in the collective where we were taught and we're like, okay, this is where I need to go to find fulfillment. But I think in that same space, there's a lot of energetic debris from our ancestors or energetic strains that we have that have been holding us back because of maybe our ancestors' limiting beliefs or maybe how they were raised and how we were raised because of their choices. And so it just feels like as we're shedding this layer of what do I believe, we're also shedding this layer of labeling ourselves because of our upbringing, which causes us to really like shed those aspects of what no longer serve us. And our ancestors walked before us, so their energy imprint is within us. And so as we do that, it's like activating that to call it to healing, to release, to open it so that it doesn't have to be a part of our story unless we choose it to be there.
I love that idea. I mean, to be able to work with our ancestors and learn who we are and what we can do, that's so valuable. I mean,
Yeah.
it really is. When you're working with someone and they've come to you for a reading and you're working with their ancestors, do you do like a clearing, or how do you help them to move past these patterns that they've inherited from ancestors?
I think a lot of times just being first aware of it
Mhm.
is the greatest space. Is okay, being aware that this, let's use an example that maybe there is a female who she has a hard time speaking up, or her throat is closed, or she's having a lot of thyroid problems. And this was someone that I worked with last week, actually, an example. And I go back and I'm like, okay, I'm seeing like 5 generations back. I see this woman coming forward who wanted to speak her truth. She had this desire to like speak and to share, but it was like every time she did, it was like this suffocation, like she couldn't. And ultimately, it was part of her passing was because her sharing her beliefs weren't okay, and that led to her passing, which sounds so dramatic, but if that's the case, right? Like, let's say that happens, and then generationally, it's like those women saw, "Oh, I can't share my voice," or "It's not safe to speak up."
Mhm.
So then her daughter sees that, and then her daughter sees her mom experience that, and so it can go down the generations where all of a sudden it's like, man, ever since I was little, I've had a hard time being able to speak my truth or to even speak up or to speak up in class. And I have
Mhm.
to constantly clear my throat. Well, that's something that generationally has been passed down. And so to acknowledge that, to be like, hey, this was her experience, this is what she's sharing. So being aware of that is part of it. And then it's the aspect of us deciding to move forward, where it's like the best way to heal and to clear it is to actively access it. So maybe that's singing in the shower, or maybe that's going online and sharing your truth, or getting in a group of people and opening up in a safe group of people who is not going to tear you down, but is a
Mhm.
safe space to give you permission to start talking or to start moving that space. It's like an active energy. So it's being aware of it and then making decisions and acting in a way that can help move that space so that when she has kids, that she can show her daughter that it's okay to speak up by her actions of speaking up, which can change the patterning.
So when somebody comes to you for a reading and they want a reading, they've lost a loved one or they're experiencing some issues, what could they expect when they sit down with you?
So I always say that it's an open conversation where, I'll sit, we'll close our eyes, we'll take a couple of deep breaths in. I always have a notepad, and if I had my journal, it's on my bed, but I always set up my paper in a specific way where I'm writing and I'm kind of just like writing and doodling whatever it is that comes in. And then from there, it's kind of just surrendering. That's like saying, okay, I'm just going to share what's coming in, what I'm seeing, what I'm feeling, and just like delivering the message. And then I always say, if you have any questions or any thoughts, like I'll always check back in to just make sure it makes sense in that space. So it really is more of like a conversation. I'm not like lighting a bunch of candles and like having this crazy seance. It's like you and me speaking right now.
And what if they come to you and they really want to talk to one particular loved one that's passed on, but that particular loved one's not coming through? Is there a reason why that happens, or?
That has happened. That does happen. And it's kind of like also for those who are stepping into their spiritual gifts too, right? It's this space of surrendering and trusting that you're just going to deliver whatever it is that's coming forward. And so, really, it's all about aligning and setting that intention and then being like, I can't promise you who's going to come forward. All I know is I see people in a line of like support, and those who are going to make the most impact or who are here to make the most of that person's experience right now are going to come forward and share whatever it is that needs to come forward. And that's scary as someone on the side being like, if this person has this expectation of who it is and they don't come forward, it's like, it can be hard. It can be really devastating. But at the same time, it's just surrendering and trusting to who needs to come forward to help that person heal and move forward in life. And a lot of times those people will come forward, but there have been times where they haven't. And I can try to connect into that, and sometimes things will come forward, but sometimes it's just not meant to be. And it's just surrendering and trusting. It's very vulnerable on both sides. Very, very vulnerable on both sides.
Yes, I can definitely tell that. So, what are some of the benefits of connecting with ancestors and loved ones and angels and
I
working
think,
with them?
yeah, I think that knowing that we're not alone and knowing that we have support on the other side, we have support from our angels and our ancestors, I feel like can help bring a sense of relief where maybe we are going through a transition in our own spiritual beliefs and maybe we feel alone. And so we're able to pray to our ancestors or to God or to whoever we feel is there to help us. We can access that truth, we can access that understanding. I think it also brings a sense of connection.
Mhm.
It helps us remember that we are so much more than this journey, this body, because life can be so hard. People go through crazy, crazy, crazy things, and it can be easy to get stuck in the heavy density of life. And so I feel like connecting to our ancestors or connecting to our spirit guides or our angels really can help us remember that we are here for a short time and that what is happening to us doesn't define us, it's what we're experiencing. I see having angelic support can help us navigate in that space more effectively. And then, like I mentioned before, we do have a lot of gifts that have been passed down from generation to generation. Just like if someone has this secret cinnamon roll recipe that their great grandmother cooked and then grandma did, and it's just passed down, we also have spiritual gifts or different ways of viewing the world that are also passed down from generation to generation. And as we open ourselves up to access that, it's like an expression of who we are as an ancestral lineage that can really bring power and support as well.
Wonderful. And it's so funny because there was like I had a question and it just went shoom as soon as I said we'll cut this part out, but it's like it was a really good question too.
That's okay.
Guys. Oh, so when you first started working with spirits, and do you have ancestors that have this gift, or
Yes,
did
was going to mention that to you too. That's funny that you had that thought come to you. So, actually, on my grandpa's side, so my mom's dad is Norwegian. He's full Norwegian. And his mother and him and his sister all had their own unique spiritual gifts of connecting to the other side. And, one of them, his sister, she ended up denouncing that gift so she could join a religion. And I when I started connecting into all of this, he had dreams and he had written in his journal about his experience with his ancestors or what his sister experienced in her spiritual gifts and how he was so mad that she denounced him so she could be a part of this congregation and all these different things. And so even just reading those journals, that gave me a lot of freedom. My brother has the same gift too. He doesn't use it actively right now. He's kind of going through his own spiritual shifting. But he also has a similar gift. And it's kind of interesting to see back in the generations how, as I've sat with that, I've learned what they used and like how it worked for them. And even she would be my great great aunt, why she decided not to use that gift. So I've been able to connect and get information from that too. So it's generational. Yeah.
you think it skips a generation, or
I haven't thought about that because I know that my mom is also very connected in her own ways.
Mhm.
And so I don't know. I don't know if it would be like skip a generation or if it's just like if we're more sensitive than I don't I actually don't know, honestly, about that aspect.
Interesting. Because I
Yeah.
believe my grandmother had the gift and her mother had the gift. And then my mom and aunt said it skipped their generation and went on to me. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I've been told that they do as well. So
Yeah, it's almost, and I think too, it's also us being believing of it and us owning that, right? Is your experience of owning your spiritual aspect or your gifts.
mhm.
Maybe it was a lot safer, or maybe because maybe your mom wasn't as open to that, or maybe she was like, oh, that's not for me, you know?
Mhm.
Maybe that also gave you the space to open it up for yourself because you're like, oh, well, grandma had this, so now I can have this, right? And so I
Mhm.
don't know. I just think every soul came here to experience different things. And so maybe it's just not their soul's journey to experience that, but that doesn't mean that they couldn't access it if they chose to.
That brings up really, every soul has a particular journey, and not everybody is on the same journey.
Yes.
And so judging people for having the gift or not having the gift is can be very detrimental, I think, to our spiritual progress as well.
Absolutely. I 100% agree.
Are you searching for a deeper connection with the unseen world? Well, then look no further. I am Amy Gray-Cunningham, and I invite you to explore the realms beyond the ordinary. As a gifted medium, I've spent years honing my abilities to bridge the gap between our world and the spirit realm. My unique approach to mediumship combines intuition, empathy, and a profound understanding of the unseen energies around us. Through a mediumship session, I can help you connect with your loved ones who have passed on, providing comfort, healing, and profound insights. Whether you're seeking closure, guidance, or simply a sense of peace, my mediumship sessions provide a secure and nurturing space for you to delve into the mysteries of the afterlife. Join me today on a transformative journey as I channel messages from the other side, offering validation, clarity, and a profound sense of connection to those who have crossed over. Book your mediumship session with me today. A typical session lasts about 50 minutes, giving us ample time to connect and for you to experience the power of a spiritual connection. So visit my website at amygraycunningham.com to schedule your session. Now get ready to unlock the healing that awaits you. Now, how did you cultivate your gift? I mean, you started at 7, seeing your grandfather and trying to figure out where that went. How did you start learning to communicate, and why do you help people connect?
Good questions. So, along with that, I would get headaches a lot. And what I have learned is this is part of it, is a lot of people who are clairvoyant are more symptomatic of having headaches. And I think it's because when you think about clairvoyance or clear seeing, it's kind of like your third eye. It's this energy portal between your two eyes. And if you have a lot of headaches or there's a lot of similarity with that, that maybe you're just not activating, or it's like wanting to open where you can trust your intuition more, or trust, like people will say their mother's intuition,
Mhm.
like that gut reaction in a lot of ways. But when I was little, I would get headaches all of the time. Where the nurse at my elementary school, I would probably go into her office 3 or 4 times a week. And she'd be like, "Okay, Jenny, go lay down. Let me get you like a washcloth." And then I'd put it on my head for 20 minutes, like I was getting away from everybody and like meditating, and
Mhm.
then going back to class because my headache would go away. And so meditation in that space was so powerful. And then I grew up in a very religious household, and I ended up going on a service mission. And it was for 18 months. I went to Tennessee. And during that time, I just focused on, connecting in and sharing my testimony, connecting into what I believed, and teaching other people about that. And what I really learned in that space was how to trust in spirit, how to just open my mouth and to speak. And even though maybe that hasn't been that same, religious structure hasn't necessarily been a part of who I am right now at this point in life, it gave me the foundation to trust what I
Mhm.
was receiving and to know that I wasn't going to be let down if I just opened my mouth and spoke. So that was really a big part of it, was trusting in that. And then when I came back, it was like, okay, God, what am I supposed to do with my life? And it was like after I said a prayer, was like, if I'm supposed to use my spiritual gifts, I'm totally open, but I need you to like show me how. And then within 30 minutes of that call, that prayer had someone reach out and was like, hey, I heard that you might be able to do this. Can I meet with you? And so it was really just the surrender and be like, I'm willing and here I am.
Mhm.
Now what? So I don't know. It's been a space of evolution for sure. But it's so rewarding. And I was also going to college at the time. I was working in a dental office and I would deliver messages every now and then if someone reached out. And I loved to do that. And then when I was going to school, I felt dead inside. When I was at the dental job, I loved the ladies I was working with, but it wasn't soul fulfilling. And I just had the choice. I said, from the messages that I have delivered, I know we're here for a purpose. We're here to really thrive in life. And I just feel like I'm surviving. And so at that point, I was like, well, I'm just going to go all in. I'm just going to be like, this is what I'm going to do. Luckily, my parents are very supportive and they let me move back in with them. I had a space that I could do readings out of. And they just opened their door to just like let me surrender and trust into that, which I'm so grateful for. But it was just like, if I'm here for this one chance right now, why not fully just embrace what I feel called to do? And it's gonna look messy, it's gonna be hard, it's gonna be different, but it's been so rewarding and I've loved it. And helping people find peace, helping people find their own self-expression has been so beautiful and absolutely so rewarding that it just makes me feel really grateful that we have our ancestors and our angels to support us so that we
Mhm.
can thrive in life instead of just be surviving all the time.
Yes, yes. And having that angelic support, that support from the the other side of the veil is so important because it opens up doors and they can see everything that's going on, whereas we have,
Yeah.
like these blinders on and can only see
We
what
just
what's
hear.
here.
Yeah.
But they can see the entire Macy's Day Parade from beginning to end. So it's really cool to be able to ask for help and
Yes.
do that.
How
Yeah.
have you had a lot of how do you feel like I want to ask this question because I'm so interested to see on your side. When you've connected and how have you felt that answer for yourself?
Oh,
Can I ask you that?
you're turning the tables on me now. It's very interesting because I as well see like these movies and sometimes I'll hear something very clearly and it's not my voice. And I know that from being able to decipher between my voice and somebody else's. But how I know is it's just a knowing that comes over.
Mhm.
And then I do ask for signs. So
Yeah. See,
yeah,
I
yeah.
love that because everyone is so different, and so I think just hearing how other people experiencing it, but
Hmm.
then not relying upon how someone else did, how it has to be for you, but
Hmm.
knowing that so many people are experiencing that, so it's finding that route that
Yeah.
works for you. That's why I was wondering because I love hearing how other people have that knowing or they feel it in their heart, they feel this burning sensation. It's always different, but at the same time, it's very similar, just maybe expressed differently.
It's interesting because it's like a knowing that comes over me and I just know it. I don't know how I know it. I just know it. And so then I'll ask them like, okay, well, you have to prove to me because I like proof. And they're very good about sending signs.
I
And
love it.
I think like my husband, he loves doing it and he gets all excited because he likes to show me that he's still around,
Yes,
still very
it's
active.
so beautiful.
Exactly. So when do you help people learn to connect with their loved ones on the other side? Or do you just
Yeah.
readings?
So for a while, I was just doing readings. And in the past year, I've been taking on individual people to
Mm-hmm.
start learning for themselves. I'm feeling like I'm in this shift of energy where, we go through different phases of our gifts and how we use them. And I feel like now like the table is turned of like wanting to like help bring other people into that space so they can do it for themselves
Mm-hmm.
and connect even deeper. And so yeah, I'm in that space where I'm really helping people dive into that in their own way and learning to trust that. So that's been an interesting transition as well. Is just like actively just showing up and being like, "Hey, I'm just gonna try to help you. I don't have all the answers, but this is what I've experienced and everybody's different, so I wanna hold space for you to explore on your own in a way that is safe,
Mm-hmm.
ultimately." So, yeah, it's been interesting how the times have, like there's just this turning, and so it's just trusting in the new steps of what it looks like every day.
Yes, yes. It's interesting how we go from one to the other to the next, and life just unfolds, and we just kind of go along with the stream.
Yeah, yeah, so I have this, Modern Sages Soul Tribe, it's on Facebook, but even this month in October, even tonight, actually, we're starting them, but on on a Monday and on Thursday, we are, having this ceremony about ancestors and an element. So tonight is ancestors and fire, and how our ancestors used fire in the past and how we can use fire to have healing with us, but to connect into our ancestors. And so, in that space, we're going to do like, I'll help everyone align. I'll open up and just like channel a message from the ancestors about fire and how that has helped them in the past. And then
Mhm,
I'll lead them through a journey or a meditation to access their ancestors through that fire. And we're going to do an element each
mhm.
time just to open up that space. And so, in that tribe, we're really focused on just trying to explore different ways of connection. And then in November, we'll do like practice readings where we can practice reading on each other or opening our gifts up. So it's been kind of fun to open up that space too of bringing a tribe of women who are all in the same boat, who want to dive deeper, who want to explore in that same space. So yeah, it's been fun.
That sounds exciting.
Yeah.
How can people sign up for that? The
Um, so it's on modernsages.com and then it's under the Soul Tribe, or on Facebook it is the Modern Sages Soul Tribe and then it says embrace the medicine within. So that's where it's at, but we'll have like the re-recordings and stuff to have access there, or if someone wants to join in, they can as well.
does someone have to already know that they can connect, or if are they just kind of like dabbling in, but they want to learn to connect? Can they join?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the space of everyone willing to embrace the medicine within. So embrace what makes them feel authentic, what helps them find connection and healing. And it's just being open minded and just seeing how other people have found connection and how that could possibly relate to you or could spark your interest into what works for you. So yeah, anyone who's, willing and open-minded who wants to give it a try is welcome into that space for sure.
That's awesome. All right, I will definitely have the link for that in the show notes as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Forward. Um, my mind never goes blank, which is so funny. And Chuck is laughing at me. He's like, uh-huh. So where can people find you?
So on Instagram is Medium. Oh, actually, sorry, we're gonna change that. I just changed it because I've had fake accounts trying to be made.
Ah,
So I've had people like reach out and be like, "Hey, I have a message for you. Pay me and I'll send it to you." And I'm like, "No, that's not me." Um, so on Instagram, it's Jenn dot Gilbreth, Gilbreth. And it's Jenn Gilbreth on Facebook, on TikTok as well. So on all the social medias. And then blessedbyangels.org is my website.
okay. So I'll have that as well in the show notes for everybody to connect. What is, if somebody's wanting to learn to connect with their loved ones on the other side, what are one or two suggestions that you would give them to start learning or to start trying?
Hmm. I think finding a safe space for yourself to sit in stillness. And
Mhm.
it's in a way that you feel safe, you feel comfortable, you don't have distraction. But even to just breathe or to just journal or to just sit in stillness and allow yourself to be comfortable with your own thoughts. Because if you're not comfortable with your own thoughts, if you're not comfortable with being still within yourself, it's going to be a whole lot harder to channel in any messages or to know the difference between your voice and someone else's if you're not comfortable listening to your own voice first. Wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I had to learn my own voice first before I could.
Yeah. And I think along with that too, my other greatest lesson learned when I'm getting started is setting boundaries. Is a lot of people are fearful, like, oh, maybe I experienced a lot of things when I was a child and maybe they were scary. So I'm scared to open up my gifts again because I've had bad experiences in the past. And I think along with that is like setting boundaries where it's like, I'm going to set time aside twice a week or every day, which sometimes that's not realistic getting started. Maybe once a week or twice a week, where I'm going to sit in silence and I'm going to create space where this is my spiritual time. And then once it's closed, I say a prayer of closing so that I can keep moving throughout my day. But I think with that is sometimes when we start to be connected, all of a sudden we feel like we have to share everything with other people or, we have to connect in and always deliver messages to people, which when I got started, I was like that. And I learned very quickly that if I don't have permission to give a message, then sometimes it's actually not helpful. And so it's about boundaries. It's about saying, I'm human too. And I don't have to always deliver a message to somebody. If someone's open or if I've been given permission, then I will. But like, I don't need to spend my time tapped into other people's ancestors or my gifts all of the time because not only is that draining on your body, it makes you really uncomfortable for other people to be around. 'Cause
Mhm.
they're like, "Are they gonna deliver a message? Are they connecting in? Do they know my dirty secrets? Like, do they know the things that I don't want anyone else to know?" It's like, "No, I'm human. I don't wanna know all that stuff." Like, so setting boundaries is, like, seriously the number 2 thing you gotta do when you get started.
Well, that's actually leading right into my next question. Do you hear spirits all the time, or do you see spirits all the time, or do you close down at 9 to 5 and you're done? And
Yeah, I try to close that down a lot. I try to still be active in my own life. And there have been times where I've been in the grocery store and all of a sudden I'm like bombarded with information. And so if it's something like really big, I'll go and talk to that person. But I always ask for permission like, hey, I'm filling into this. Like, this is so big. I don't really do this as often. Like, this is how it's coming in. And if I've given permission, then I'll do it more. I'll like open up a little bit. But I just feel as though I've made this contract with my angels that if I'm supposed to meet someone or if I'm supposed to be in contact, that they'll provide the footing for it to happen in a way that's safe and in a way that doesn't feel uneasy, but also is in my boundaries. Because I also want to be here, I want to be present. And I know a lot of people who are gifted in that way, if they don't have boundaries, their body can illness and all kinds of autoimmune diseases can show up very easily for people. And so I'm like, I don't want that to be part of my space unless that's part of my journey. But I want to be able to set boundaries in a way that I can have healthy space for myself. And so I don't really have it where I can always hear things because that would be exhausting.
yes, I totally agree with you on that one. So as you were talking, another question popped into my mind. If someone is afraid of their gifts or afraid of actually hearing from spirit and they close it down and they stuff it, could that cause physical disease within the body because they're not living their spiritual truths?
Yes, I strongly believe that. There was a woman who her dad had passed, and when the way that we met was insanely amazing. My sister went and got her nails done, and she met this lady at the nail salon, and we were having this event, and she was like, "Hey, you need to come to this event. Me and my sisters are hosting it." So she showed up, and then I was giving out a free reading, and she ended up getting the reading. Like, how bizarre is all of that? Like, divinely guided, 100%. And she had just said that she had told my sister that she was just recovering from cancer. And when I had met with her, I didn't really know all of that story yet until she's told me it. But her dad was wanting to give her permission to honor her spiritual practices. And she was more into like the esoteric. She would consider herself more of like a witchy person.
Hmm.
And her father was very staunch Christian. And so when he passed, she had kind of been like this, like in the closet about her spiritual beliefs. But when he passed, she was like, he knows everything about me and he's not going to approve. So I can't do it anymore. And he mentioned how that was contributing to her illness and how he was like, stop. Your spiritual expression is so important that your body will show up. If you're not in alignment, it will show up in your body. And I found that to be so fascinating. And as a child myself, had a lot of headaches because I was so visual and now when I get headaches, I'm like, okay, I need to go lay down, listen to a meditation, honor what I'm seeing in my mind, or it'll build up and I'll get heavy headaches or I'll feel a lot of tension in my shoulders. And so I do think that there is that aspect of it showing up in our body if we push it down or if we're not allowing it to flow through us in a lot of ways.
That is a really good point about the headaches, and I've had headaches quite a bit growing up as well. And I know that when I'm able to stop and connect and breathe, the headaches
Yeah.
tend to subside.
And
So,
a lot of times too, people will have to go through a traumatic loss or a traumatic experience to trigger, like to force that person to back into the space of awareness.
mhm,
And at time and time again, it's like, if someone loses a loved one and all of a sudden they're like, man, what do I believe? Who am I? What am I without this person? It opens up the door for them to like come back home. They're
mhm.
like forced into that space or sickness or illness. And a lot of times that's just part of our soul's journey and experience. But if we're able to make that connection when those circumstances do happen, because we all have those soulful, impactful experiences, it's part of this human journey, we can navigate it easier and come back home more frequently so we don't get lost in the heaviness or the density of this world. And that's what our ancestors and angels want to help us empower us that we navigate and cope in a way that's healthy for ourselves.
Yes. Yes, yes. And it's interesting because we come here to experience ourselves in this third dimensional reality as spirit, but then we forget that we are spirit, and then we awaken to being spirit, and then we get afraid to be the spirit. And then we have to come
Yeah,
to terms with the spirit, and then we grow. It's a whole butterfly transformation process.
it's beautiful. I know. That's why I love what you're here to help people share and to do. And even you stepping into your space and bringing a community together and like honoring your gifts, even if we don't always see it, it makes a difference. And
Yeah.
we're healing ourselves, we're healing our ancestors who came before, but also those to come. We have such a greater impact than we realize. Each
Mhm.
and every day, just living life authentically brings so much power that we might not be aware of if we don't feel it inside of us at times.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said.
Yes.
Well, one final question for you, and you probably already know this answer or this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway and see what you have to say because I think it's so much fun. If you have an hour to sit and talk with someone, whether that person be on this side of the veil or the other side of the veil, who would
Mm.
it be and what would you talk about?
Ooh, that is a juicy question. Who would it be and what would we talk about? You know, this is going to sound foreign.
Probably won't be, I'm sure. Or maybe it will. I've had some very interesting answers.
What I'm drawn to right away is I'm also just in the space of, okay, so I'm just going to share my thoughts on that because that's an
Yeah.
interesting combo. But to me, like recently, I've been really interested in Mother Earth, in plant medicine. I work a couple days at an herb shop that
Hmm.
I've picked up. And so learning about how herbs can be healing and how they can implement different things. I feel like I would really be intrigued by sitting with Mother Earth. Like like if I could put her into like a physical being,
Yeah.
like a spirit being and be like, "Okay, give me the rundown. What's the 411? What's all this about? How do you make it happen?" What I think that that would be so phenomenal. But I'm like, it's a foreign concept because it'd be like so interesting. It'd be fascinating.
I think that's the best answer I've received so far. I love it. I love it. I've
Yeah.
so many different, but that would be so cool to figure out what Mother Earth really wants for the earth, how we can best
Yeah.
serve her, and
Because
what she has to teach us.
you think about it, she holds so much wisdom, right?
Yeah.
All of those who came before have been brought back down into her soil, whether
Hmm.
it be through, burial or ashes or whatever, right? Like everything goes back down into the soil. So everything is made up of her. Like we're made up of her and we're going to go back down into her space. And then everything we're given, I'm like really learning about the power of different kinds of mushrooms and how fungus is like everything on the floor of the whole world. Like we don't even see it, but it's there. It's just everything that she has that flows so perfectly. And there's cycles. And as humans, we always like hold back from cycles. We like resist the cycles of change. And for her, it's just like this natural evolution. And I just think it'd be fascinating.
It would be. I've often wondered what it would be like, and this is going to sound probably even weirder, to talk to a tree. I
Yeah.
mean, they've been around for how many years and have seen so many wars or people sitting underneath them and having picnics or storms and then sunshine and then the birds and they're
Yeah.
they have such a huge impact, and if they could talk, I would love to listen to what they had to say.
Yeah. Well, and
I would.
even just placing your hand on the tree and
Mhm.
just like even imagining your energy merging with that tree, just feeling that wisdom, like I'm sure you could definitely connect into that as well. You
Mhm.
know, there's
Yeah.
everything is energy and it's just believing that what we can experience is real because it all is real.
Yes. 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 Wasn't there a fairy tale like
Yes.
in Wonderland or something?
Yes, yes. Everything is magical. The life we live can be so magical. It's crazy.
Well, Jen, thank you so much. I can't believe we're already up on the hour. It is crazy how time flies, but I have enjoyed
Yes.
the conversation and getting to know you and hear your story. And thank you for shining your light so bright and being the wonderful soul that you are.
Well, thank you. I'm so honored. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to Butterfly Kisses podcast, a journey of spiritual transformation. We hope today's episode has sparked new thoughts, offered fresh perspectives, or simply entertained you. Remember, the conversation doesn't have to end here. Connect with us on social media, share your thoughts, and stay engaged. Also, share it with a friend. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep embracing the journey of spiritual transformation. Take care, and we'll catch you on the next episode. See ya!